If your ink's too slow and your nib won't flow, here's one of the places that you can go. Larry is here to see you through with Mr. Announcer and Cubby too. It's Larry's Fountain Pen Reviews.
Okay, folks. All right, Jim Hinze here, and he's going to introduce all his staff. Okay, so I'm going to turn the show over to Mr. Jim.
All right.
Welcome.
Yep.
Thanks for coming aboard.
Okay.
Baby.
So first and foremost, we have Elise Longazelle. Say hi, so you come on screen.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
And Elise is our resin expert. And in fact, little announcement just for Larry. Starry Night Resins is going to be officially formed here in the next few weeks.
Wow.
Not only will she be supplying resin to us and many of the other pen makers like River City, Signature Pen, and quite a few others, she's going to be pouring resin for narwhal pens.
Wow.
Next to her is our Chief Polishing Officer. There's Natalie, Larry. Say hi, Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
She makes sure that everything's nice and shiny and scratch-free when they go out. And even if Mom polishes, Natalie gets to approve before they ship. Next to me is my niece, Rachel. Say hi.
Hi.
Hi, Rachel.
And as we just mentioned, Rachel's been with us about 3 months or so and is the next generation of pen maker. I just got a text from Francisco. Hang on. He'll be on in a second. He and Ray should be on in a second. Ray is our other pen maker and has been with us on and off since 2018. But now both Rachel and Ray are full-time makers for us.
Hi.
Hi, Ray.
Hey. How
Well, I
are
don't think. Oh, there he is. Hey, buddy.
you? Hey.
So this is Ray. Like I said, he's been with us on and off since 2018 and is a very accomplished pen maker. He can make pretty much anything we have in our inventory. And then his cousin, when we get him, is the heart and soul of Heinz Pens, and that's Rodrigo.
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 ¿Qué pasó, Rodrigo?
The very first time I met Francisco at the St. Louis Pen Show, I went up to him and said, "Hey, Rodrigo, how you doing?"
I remember, Tony. His face just dropped. So, yeah, Ray, for the longest time, Larry couldn't remember Francisco and just called him Rodrigo.
I love it.
Okay.
And it's stuck since 2017.
And I look, man, I would catch all kinds of canes from him.
Speak of the Diablo. Speak of the Diablo. He's joining us right now.
Oh, good.
Welcome. Can you hear us? Are you there, Rod? Rod, are you there? He's on.
I see he's muted right now. I see him.
Oh, okay. While we're waiting, Jim, has Rachel always, did she use fountain pens before she came to work for you?
No.
No, here, come speak up. Just say no. You really didn't make anything either.
No, I was a phlebotomist before I started working.
Ooh.
Oh,
She originally wanted to get some part-time work just polishing with Natalie. And, you know, I've known Rachel most of her life. And I'm like, you know, humor me for a minute. I think you'll be all right making. So let's try some and see how you like it. If you don't like it, we'll go back to polishing. And much like Ray, she took to it like a fish to water. You know, Ray was the other one. You show him something once, and watch him do it. He's got it down. Neither one of these two had ever touched a lathe, metal, wood, anything prior to coming to work for me. So, and in some ways it's a good thing because I've been able to teach them how I do things, not necessarily in theory how things would be done. And it leaves a lot less questions, at least on initial learning. And then I encourage both of them to continue watching YouTube videos on machining techniques and things, because just because I do it a certain way doesn't necessarily mean it's the best or the right way. So, with constant learning.
There you go. That's awesome. Now, will you use a fountain pen, Rachel?
Yeah, I've got the first one that I ever made. I have that one and I keep that with me. I don't ever use a pen. I mean, I'm 21. Everything I have is on my phone, unfortunately. But when I use a pen, yeah, I'll take notes in the shop and whatever with my little fountain pen.
Well, there's time to bring you over to the dark side. Don't worry. There's plenty of time.
She hasn't been to a pen show yet, though. So we're all planning on going to Arkansas in a few weeks when it comes up. That'll be her first one. And I think even though Arkansas is kind of small, she'll be a little bit overwhelmed. She's not really, she realizes that people buy our pens and people love our pens, but she doesn't really get how busy we are at pen shows.
Mm-hmm.
Even with COVID attendance, we're busy.
I didn't change my name.
Are you planning on going to St. Louis this year, Jim?
Of course.
Okay.
Emma is still planning on doing her bullet journaling seminar. And then Elise, what are you doing for them? What did they ask you to do? Come off mute.
I was hoping to use the space bar thing, but you have the volume option up, so it wouldn't let you do it. Oh, okay. Well, never mind. For St. Louis, they've asked me to do a demo on how to pour resin and the steps of what it goes from a picture to an actual pen body. So, and Larry, I love your baby Yoda.
Oh, thank you, dear. Well, yay! She's the star of the show now. Yay!
I've got one too.
Oh, look at there! All the babies. Got a little baby right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I take him to Starbucks with me once in a while.
I've got 3 of them in my car.
People just look.
Is the one in your car a toy, Yoda? I'm just kidding. I'm just
I know, right?
Sorry.
So I would like to say hi to Dr. Joe. We've never met, although you're an absolute legend in the community. Thank you for joining today.
You need to set your sights higher, get better legends. But thank you. Nice to meet you.
Well, it is nice to meet you finally.
I hope to meet some of you guys at some of these pen shows. The only one I've ever made was Atlanta. I've made that pen show twice. I live in Augusta. But with enough advanced planning, I hope to go to some of these more crowded pen shows. We'll see.
Before we get started, why don't we go around the table, let everybody say their name and where they're from, if y'all don't mind. Take it away with, we'll start with Dr. Joe first.
Joe Vitolo. I'm in Augusta, Georgia. I've been here for about 6 years. I'm actually, if you listen to me talk long enough, you pick up what's called the Brooklynese dialect. I was born and raised in Hoboken, New Jersey. Went to college in Manhattan. I've been all over the place, but I love the South. I love the slower pace of life. Hey, guys.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Joe. I'm Jesse. I'm from Fort Worth. Been here all my life. 24. Hi, Larry. I know Larry from Starbucks. He gets his vanilla latte, and sometimes I give him a cinnamon latte just to mess with him. So, hey, nice to meet you all.
Good man. There's a tip coming for me for you.
I'll be waiting.
Okay. Next.
I'm Liz from Black Diamond, Washington. Nice to meet you, Jim.
Hi,
I have
Liz.
2 of your pens.
Yep, I recognize the name.
Yep.
Next.
I don't think you do. Go ahead, Marilyn.
I'm Miss Marilyn Darling. I'm from Santa Ana, California.
Next.
Francisco or Rodrigo, whichever
Francisco.
one.
How's it going, y'all?
Hey, Francisco, ¿qué pasó ese?
What's up, Larry?
I'm busy talking our language so they can't understand us.
I'll see, that's unfair because Elise will understand us and so will Ray.
And so will I.
Ray, okay, I'll go with Ray, but Alicia, not if we go really slanging deep, they can't handle it then.
I don't know. Elise teaches in the hood, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You'd be surprised. She hits you with some of those colloquialisms, like you're looking at her like, okay, I did not expect that.
What's up? Put all the sides up. Okay, all right. Next, who's next out there?
Ray is next.
Ray, come on down.
Ray I'm Ray, and I make pens for Jim.
All right. Nice to where do you live at, Ray?
I live in Louisville, Texas.
Oh, okay.
I live about 2 miles from Francisco.
All right, cool. Next.
Stan.
Hi, I'm Stan. I'm from Philadelphia, and I've been to the Philly Pen Show, and I saw Jim there, and he was always busy. Stopped by a couple times at his table. Nice pens, but just couldn't pull the trigger.
All right.
Aw, that's okay. You will someday. I know you will.
How about you, Dan?
Me llamo Dan.
Hello. ¿Cómo está usted?
Me, no hablo. My name's Dan Roseberry, and I'm the only one here besides Liz that wore pink, though hers is more cranberry, for Larry tonight.
Here, I have pink down my arm. I've got a little band.
My bow tie is pink.
All right.
My underwear is pink.
Yeah.
Larry,
Anyway,
I love you, but I don't own a
here, buddy.
piece of pink clothing. Sorry.
Buy one.
Elise, you're next.
Melon got one. Good for Mary.
Elise Longazel. I live here in Dallas with Jim. My daughter Natalie. Say hi, Natalie. Hello. She's in 7th grade, and our resident QA polisher person and trainer. So I teach pre-K during the day and pour resin at night, and I'm working on a doctoral degree.
Awesome.
In what area?
I'm in the Dallas area, originally from
And
Youngstown,
what
Ohio.
area is your doctoral degree?
It's going to be in organizational leadership in learning with emerging technologies.
Great. Good luck.
She's just about done. She's just working on her defense of her dissertation. So,
wow, that's awesome. Awesome. Mike Green's in the house. Tell us where you're from, Mike.
I'm from Delano, Minnesota. And so what else are you asking right now? Sorry, I just joined.
Your name?
Okay, Mike Green, Delano, Minnesota. Okay, yeah, I guess. Oh, yeah, I'm in
Questions
Delano.
don't get harder, Mike. Take it easy.
Oh, that's a tough one. Mike Green. Yeah.
oh, come on. You ought to be old hat at this, Mike.
Oh, I'm trying to get old hat at it, but I'm still pretty clumsy.
Nightmare. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And Jake, what about you?
I'm Jake Harper, and I'm here right across the table from Larry, right here.
Oh, awesome. There you go.
Always good to see you, Mr. Announcer.
Very much so. You're not just a silhouette anymore.
The mystery is over.
That's
Did
right.
we get everybody? Did we get everybody?
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay,
Yep.
well, here's our plan before I give it to Jim, and so Jim can mess it all up. I think Mr. Announcer and I are going to hit his way during the summertime, and we're going to do a live show with Jim. And then they'll throw me out. So that's it.
Well, you know, we'll see. We'll just hope you're able to hang out long enough.
I got to show Jim something, though, that I think it's still my favorite pen, Jim. One day I went to
I already know which one he's bringing out.
No, you don't. I bet you don't.
The Paladin.
Huh?
He's bringing out the Paladin.
Yes. How'd you know that?
Because it's your favorite pen I've ever made.
Yes. I'll be darned. Yeah. One day we went to Jim's house and hanging out with him, and I wanted a pen a certain way.
Although I am a little depressed though, Larry. That didn't make your Apple Boom top 3.
Uh-oh.
Larry can't hear what you're saying
Any
now.
comments?
Because, you know, Larry, despite the fact that we don't come on as often as you would like, I do watch everything that you put out, including your Apple Boom interview. So, you know, I know it's your favorite pen, but it didn't make the official top 3.
Wow, he can't wait to dog me. I mean, it's like
Larry starts hiding behind his hair, just like,
Larry, it's almost as bad. It's almost as bad as me showing that prototype that Salvatore wasn't supposed to see.
no, wait. Now, let me set the record right since Mr. J brought it up. I haven't done my top 3 for this year, and on my top 10, I haven't done any of that yet, but it's on board. But anyway, let me finish the story.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Now, I wanted a certain pen, a certain way. And while we were there, Jim made me, and I named it the Paladin because it reminds me of Paladin, one of my favorites.
I feel like I can smell the ebonite over here. Is that what it is?
Yep.
It's a
Yeah, but we made that in 2019. That's probably tempered quite a bit. It doesn't have that normal ebonite aroma anymore.
It's a beautiful, it really is. It just my favorite, I guess. Yeah, this is the Paladin. Where do you roam?
There you go. Hey, Jim, a question for you regarding that pen,
Yes, sir.
or just ebonite in general. I think Mike Green was talking about when he made an ebonite pen, how it stunk up the house and his wife almost divorced him. How do you deal with that?
I try to buy as often as I can the stuff from Nikko Ebonite in Japan, which is, in my opinion, the best quality ebonite on the planet. It's a lower sulfur than even the German stuff, and the German stuff is great. Don't get me wrong.
You know they still sell plugins, right?
Yeah, they do, but it's still one of those odors. If you get it too hot, it really stinks up. And the trick is not to be overly aggressive when boring it or machining it, because that's when the odors really come out. But unfortunately, the Indian ebonite is the absolute pits. I know everybody likes the colors that Ranga comes up with, and they do have some beautiful colors, but the ebonite is just so subpar quality-wise, in my opinion. It smells like rotten eggs when you machine it.
We keep the door closed a lot.
Yeah, to the garage. And we'll open the garage door to air it out a bit.
Wait, can you kind of elaborate on what ebonite is for those who are new to pens?
Oh, sure. And you're a bit young, so you won't remember when bowling balls were actually made out of hard rubber instead of plastic. It's vulcanized rubber. So they use some chemicals, including sulfur and other stuff, as well as heat and pressure to basically harden the rubber. So it's the same material clarinets are made out of, saxophone mouthpieces, oboes. It takes a very nice polish and shine. For a fountain pen, if you write with it for a good duration, you have a really long writing session, it tends to absorb moisture from your hand rather than build up and make the pen slick with a normal plastic.
Right.
And it'll get warm the more you use it. It will actually absorb some of the heat from your hand, making for a great, comfortable experience, which amazes me because a lot of people don't like ebonite pens. We make them. We don't sell a lot of them. I think everybody should own a nice ebonite pen.
Jim, do you think that's because they have such a preference for multicolored, pretty, plastic, much greater color variation you can get right with the acrylics and whatever else. So, and
much more vibrant. We can get some good multicolor stuff. I've actually had Nikko do some custom colors for us, but you're right, Joe. They're never as vibrant or as bright and sparkly as the plastics these days.
Yeah.
So I get it, but still just a wonderful writing experience.
Yeah, and I've never thought about how how it lasts in your hand for that long. You know, for me, like if I were to buy a pen, I would look at the aesthetic or just kind of how it writes. But I wouldn't have never thought about the longevity of it, even in just one sitting. So that's interesting to like point out.
Yeah.
Well, there are vintage ebonite pens that are still around. The problem is their surface oxidizes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you repolish. I have a question for you, Jim. It's a follow-up to something you said. This is more of my own ignorance. I love ebonite. It's for me, it's the best feeling pen in my hand, especially when it's coated with the rushi. But does the content of the sulfur content necessarily imply, as it increases, that it's poor ebonite?
You know, I don't know. I don't know enough about the manufacturing process to really speak intelligently. What I found,
just curious,
is the Indian ebonite, it tends to crack more, especially if you're overly aggressive when machining. And for people who haven't used it before or new pen makers, they'll tend to drill it just like they would a plastic, which is fast and hard. And you know, the sulfur smell is easy to equate to the varying three ebonites, right? You know, you machine the Indian stuff, and you'll know you're machining Indian ebonite. The German stuff is a step below the Japanese, and really of good quality. The original Americana, Larry, that we have in that slate gray and blue, that's German SEM. Okay. But since I found Nico over in Japan, if I can't get the color I need from him, either I won't do it or it'll be the German SEM. And the only, like I said, the only thing I can attest to the quality is the proliferance of cracking or splitting under heavy stress.
Jim, you made a comment that the German stuff is a step below the Japanese. What did you mean by that? I'm a little confused.
From an odor standpoint.
So it has less of an odor.
No, it has a little more odor than the Japanese.
Okay.
Japanese is the lowest odor from a machining and or working standpoint. It doesn't stink up the shop nearly as much as the Indian stuff.
Does the odor have any difference between the quality of the ebonite?
That's what I was asking you.
And the only thing I can equate that to, like I was explaining to Joe, the higher the smell, the more it stresses under load and tends to crack or blow out. And Ray can attest to this. If you drill ebonite deep enough and long enough without pulling out the swarf, it'll actually pop and blow the drill bit out of the blank. And it'll tend to crack the threads if you've already done them. So,
but is there a difference in the quality though?
Well, from anecdotal evidence, if it tends to break under stress while we're machining it, it's a weaker product.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, I didn't understand that at first.
I was going around and around in circles.
That's okay. It's okay. Thank you.
Mike Green, did you what was your experience when you were coring out that ebonite pen? Did you Jim said if you were doing it really rapidly and hard, that it would create more of that issue. Is that how you went about doing yours?
Well, I would say that it probably the first, I've done basically, I haven't been at it for very long, so I've only done two major, batches, if you will, two sets of pens in ebonite. And the first time I did it, I noticed the smell a lot. And I did a second set of ebonite, and it wasn't nearly as bad. And so I was going, oh, I must have improved. As Jim was saying, I've learned to treat the material better and all this, and that may be part of it. But also another thing I've just discovered recently was that, I was turning a lot of and I believe this is German ebonite. I don't know if you can see it well enough to really say.
Is it from Vermont Freehand?
This is from Beaufort Inks.
That could be either Indian or German.
Okay, I'm not sure which one it is because they don't say. But actually, what I discovered though, and I'm not sure if the different colors are from different manufacturers, but I discovered that just recently now the pure black has it's much how would you put it? It's a lot more, when it cuts, it's a lot powderier, more powder. You know what I mean? The colored was doing really nice curling swarfs, basically a lot like regular, like the plastics I was used to, maybe a little bit finer, but the black was almost powder coming off. And it smelled a lot more.
Send me an email. I'll send you a piece of Japanese black.
Oh, I've got
you'll see a difference.
Well, here, I'll just a moment.
I have a question.
Okay.
For Jim.
Here, see, I just got.
Oh, there you go.
I got some Nico. I haven't had a chance to cut it yet.
You'll definitely see a difference. Just make sure your cutters are sharp. If your cutters are dull, you'll generate more powder than you will actual shavings.
But I was running this the pure black rod, which might have been, I don't know, again, against these colored ones. The colored ones were behaving much better than the black. The black was just really powdery and smelled a lot more. And now I haven't had a chance to touch the Nico. This is the Nico right here. I just got it.
The black from Beaufort. I suspect, I don't know for sure, but I suspect it's Indian. I think that his colored stuff, looking at his catalog, because I bought from him before, it looks to be either German SEM or some of Nico's stuff. But I do know he's got quite a few Japanese. His red, white, and blue is Indian for sure, because we did some of that, and that was the stinkiest stuff I've done in a long, long time.
Yeah, see, I just did some red, white, and blue, and it didn't stink very badly at all. So I don't, again, just anecdotally, it seemed like the pure black was the big offender. The colored stuff seemed to bother.
Do either of you guys wear masks when doing this machining? I don't. Maybe Marilyn can weigh in on this. Is there any evidence of a problem with breathing ebonite dust into the lungs? Sorry to bring this up at this time. Just
breathing anything into the lungs is bad.
Yeah.
For
you guys wear respirators and stuff?
Use some sort of either at least a paper mask.
So I am horribly guilty. I've been doing woodworking now. We're going on almost 30 years, plus or minus. And I've always had reasonable dust collection, but I've never worried about fine dust particles. And I know I'll pay for that later personally. One of the things we are going to do is put up an air cleaner in the shop this year, because sanding tends to really be a problem with dust lately. So we don't, but we're moving in that direction.
With everything that's going on in the world, the over-the-head masks have become so cheap. I've seen these people using them when they're making other items, and they have a full head mask. And this guy got one for like $12. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? So
I have a pretty good quality over the face mask that I wear, and I'm running a dust collection system that's pulling the air away from the material as I'm cutting it. I don't have a room level cleaner, but I think Jim is right. I mean, if you do this long enough, and you're even with low level exposure, it's not going to be good for you, almost no matter what you're putting into your lungs.
So as y'all are making the pens, this is where like the dust gets collected, or where it's when you're actually forming the pen, or like what process of it?
When you're drilling, when you're shaping, when you're sanding, although we wet sand, which keeps the fine dust out of the air. So that's less of an issue. But anytime you cut plastic or ebonite, unless you're using an incredibly sharp brand new cutter, you're going to form more dust than you will clean shavings. And even though on the metal lathe we use a lot of carbide cutters, the first time you cut with them, they start to dull. So you do, and actually Ray can attest to it. He changes his cutters probably far more often than I do, because the minute he starts seeing more dust generating off of a blank, he'll switch out. True?
With ebonite like dulls my bits like instantly, like after the first second pen. I mean, I probably do about 1 or 2 a week and do much more of the other style, but once I use ebonite, it'll dull my drill bits real quick.
Yeah, it's very abrasive.
Can you resharpen
that, Marilyn?
What?
Yeah, I got a, what is it, the drill doctor or something? That it's a machine Jim gave me that will sharpen the drill. The drill bits, I'm sorry. Drill bits. So yeah, I sharpen them again after that. And then they start cutting like butter after that. But it's usually after I use ebonite.
Interesting. How about celluloid? Is that a difficult material to work with?
Celluloid in its pure form, not celluloid acetate, but celluloid is very heat susceptible. And it's something that only I've worked with. I haven't let these two play with yet, because if you are overly aggressive, it can melt. It can burst into flame. It can deform easily. It's a delicate material to work with, but there is nothing on this planet that shines or produces the depth of color that celluloid does.
Most people that have a factory that have celluloid, I've seen they build an offshoot outside of their factory, like a small building specifically for their acetate builds, because if it goes, it's going to take the whole building, especially if there's any acetate within 5 feet of it.
That was the Monte Grappa video you're talking about. Yeah.
That's why you don't see a lot of people making it anymore. And in fact, really the only major manufacturers are for the eyeglass industry anymore. And most of them are still made in Italy. And believe it or not, you can actually buy thinner sheets of their celluloid that they would use for glasses. And with a little acetone and pressure, you can weld them together and create the bigger bricks that you used to see coming out of the pen manufacturers. So it's still possible to get newer and create your own sort of mixes. But it's a delicate material that the first few that I ever worked on, I completely destroyed because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, I had a very large collection. I showed the guys the picture before of Omas Arco celluloid. Beautiful material, but well, if you haven't seen it, let me just quickly post this up for Jim to see here. Share.
You're gonna make me drool. Arco's my favorite in the world.
Exactly.
The brown Arco. Oh yeah, look at that.
Now, let me just say this, guys. I no longer own most of these pens. It represented one snapshot of my collection at one time. I sold off most of them. The reason why, I still love the material, but I'm really particular about the pen points I use. I love Japanese extra fine points, and most of these things are mediums or European fines, a little too squishy for me, a little too soft for me. So they're beautiful to have, but you're right. These things can be problematic. This stuff is really cured, but I know some of the remnant residual Arco celluloid from Omas, there was some concern whether that was properly aged or not. I'm not really sure. I've had no issues with the stuff I had, and I know all the stuff I got that was used from ASC was just these are just beautiful pens, beautiful pens.
Jim, do you have a specific order that you make the parts in, or does it vary depending on the pen?
I have my way of doing stuff, and once I've taught these two, I let them kind of do their thing as long as they get the pen made. I always make the body first, get the thread and the bore done. Then I'll usually make the section so I can size the inside cap to the right length, and then I'll make the cap. But I rarely these days ever make one pen at a time. If I'm going to make, like I've got a couple Americana orders that have come in the last 2 weeks or so. So when I sit down to make those, I'll make 5 or 6 Americanas. I'll make a couple of the colors that were ordered. I'll make a couple others. It's always quicker to work in a little batch like that than it is just to make a one-off. Although with most of our pens, the Americana being the exception, I can make one in about 90 minutes. I still demo. I still travel to the maker pen shows and do demos and some classes here and there. And one of the things is I take 90 minutes and I do a live demo while we make one of our Elementar pens. And then we usually give it away to the crowd, and I field questions while I'm doing it. And this is all on a wood lathe, not the metal lathe setup I usually work on.
Question, Jim?
Sure.
Or Mike, what goes in and how do you create one of my favorite style of pens, which is a faceted pen? I love facets. How's that process go? Because you're not turning it on a circular. I guess you are at some point. Well,
at some point we break it off. I only do faceted pens on request. It's not a general offering. There's quite a few people out there, Sean Newton, Jose Similiqui, that do gorgeous facet pen work, and that's sort of their thing. So I let them do it.
Right.
But if somebody asks me to do it, I'm not ashamed to say I cheat. So I also make pen maker tools or tooling for other pen makers. So I have a mini machine shop. So I've got a mill, I've got a dividing head. A dividing head is a piece of machinery that you can take and divide into a round object into however many sides you want by turning a crank. So I use an end mill. I divide it up to the number of facets that need to be there, and I mill the flat. Rather than, I know Newton still files most of his. I'm not that creative. I use the easiest means necessary.
There's nothing wrong with that. Cheating is how I got through 8th grade. That's interesting. I've always wondered about that. Thank you so much, Jim, for answering that.
Yeah, it's not an overly difficult process if you got the right equipment. You could do the same thing really on a wood lathe. Each wood lathe has an indexing plate on the back of the spindle. So all you got to do is, most of them are 36 holes. You divide it by 6 every 6 holes. Take your Dremel tool and run it across, or a router and run it across the pen to create the flat, and go to the next index mark. So there are multiple ways to accomplish it.
Jim or Mike, what's the difficulty in making ebonite feeds, and are you planning to introduce them to your pens?
One, you have to have a slitting saw thin enough in order to cut the fins. And if you look at the most manufacturing of an ebonite feed, there's a series of 5 or 6 slitting saws that all come together and slice at once. Yeah. So if someone wants a handmade ebonite feed, we can make them. You know, any competent pen maker can make a handmade ebonite feed, but you're going to pay 5-6 times the price of buying one, say, from Flexible Nib Factory, because you're going to pay me for 2-3 hours worth of work slitting that, shaping it, as opposed to spending $20 or $40 and buying one that's already done via CNC. I don't see a whole lot of difference in the mass-produced ebonite feeds versus a hand-done one for your average user. If you're heavy into flex nibs that demand a lot of ink, you're going to want some sort of custom feed, or even a customized plastic. But it's for the consumer, it's not really economical for us to do that.
Thank you.
Regarding feeds, question. This is, I don't know if you can see this or not. This is a dual fold, Parker dual fold. And I don't see any fins on that. Are fins actually necessary? In fact, Omos ebonite feeds don't have a lot of fins.
They don't have a lot of them. They have thicker fins. I'm not a nibmeister.
Okay.
So whether or not they're necessary, some fins, or at least ink channels, are necessary for the capillary action.
Yeah. Right.
What the fins do is allow more ink to load into the feed itself to be available on demand for the nib. If you were to put a flex nib on that dual fold, I suspect it'd be starving.
Right.
But for everyday writing, I think it'd be just fine. So you know, that'd be a great question if we could get Mark Backus or Kirk Spear on. That'd be a great question for them.
I think you answered it really well.
Because there has to be some sort of gas liquid interchange. They have to like.
Well, I bet you if he took that feed out and you looked at the underside, the side that's closest to the nib, you'll find 2 or 3 ink channels and maybe some smaller fins that aren't visible from the underside in order to make that flow properly.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know about this specifically, but it could be that the increased amount of fins decreases. I guess it would decrease the amount of surface contact you have on the backside of the feed with the underside of the nib. Because if you want good ink flow for flex nib, you got to get that ink out of that pen quickly. I have it. It's possible if you have a whole capillary action going on. It's just speculation, pure speculation. I have no idea. I'll shut up now.
Well, what I've seen in feeds modified for flex nibs, Joe, is you'll see either a much wider, deeper groove cut into the middle of the feed on the underside, closest, or 2 of them cut, and then wider fins as opposed to the really thin fins that you find on the ABS feeds of modern pens. And all that helps, as you say, to put more ink in contact to make a nice even flow when you put pen to paper.
When it comes to flex stuff and ink, all right, the ink viscosity becomes really critical. And I'm talking about dip pen nibs. Not all inks, as you guys well know, are created the same. Some are more wet, some are not as wet. And I think to think that you can come up with one fountain pen with a flex nib that can handle all different types of ink equally is, in my opinion, not correct. Because there's such a difference in the thickness of some inks, the acidity of inks, their wettability, all that stuff. And you have to maybe play around with some inks to find out what is the best. I know with the Mont Blanc calligraphy pen, every time I take that cap off, because it's rather tight seal, I get all this ink that bleeds out of the slit. And that's just because I'm inducing a vacuum when I twist that. And the nib is set up so, you know, the ink comes off that pretty quickly. You know, but I imagine you could find an ink that may not work as well with those types of pens.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. On occasion, we've, you know, we try to keep tight threads on our pens. And in fact, Larry can attest to this. You can cap one of our pens for 6-7 months and uncap it and write, and it won't be dry. But on occasion, we'll have those tolerances too tight, and it will create a vacuum, as you just described in the Mont Blanc. And we've had a couple pens come back where they're like, oh, I opened it up and there's ink all over the cap. Well, the threads were too tight and we had too good a seal, which is why I also tell a lot of people at shows, don't cinch our pens, like really tighten them down. Just snug them. You know, they won't dry out. There isn't a whole lot of air movement inside that cap, but you don't want to create that vacuum effect.
Yeah, no, the Tassia pens have a little flexible inner thing that caps the nib, so it doesn't have much air movement to it and dry out the nib. But
Estabrook does too. It's a little plastic inner cap that completely swallows a section.
And I'm not a big vintage pen guy, but every once in a while I'd see a vintage ebonite pen where there's a little tiny pinhole drilled into the cap. And I wonder if that's what that was for, to prevent that kind of, you know.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Because ebonite threads in general are much tighter and closer fitting, just from the nature of the material than plastic.
Yeah, I know when John Brooks does Urushi work, especially when he's working with Sean Newton's pens, he asks Sean to cut the threads extra deep, whatever that means. And I know I've had Nakayas where, you know, you go to twist the cap on, the thing locks up.
Yep.
The Urushi on the threads. I'm actually okay with no Urushi on the threads. Some people really dislike that, but I care about the pen point, not the rest of it as much.
I think I must be the only person in the fountain pen world that is not a fan of Urushi.
Hey, now.
Well, I think it's beautiful, but writing with it and handling it, it's not my thing.
I hear you. May have to rethink our friendship, Tony.
I didn't say that.
I say one little thing and I just offended the man.
But who said that? Was it
Definitely
Tony?
That was Jim
That
Hyde.
wasn't
Oh, that
Jim,
was
was
Jim.
definitely
That was
Tony.
me. That
That's
was
all right. I'll
me.
take it out on Tony anyway, Jim. Don't worry about it.
It was definitely Tony. That wasn't Jim.
I'm okay with that.
I was married. I can take it.
Personal, it's personal preference, guys. You know, I'm only joking. So.
Yeah. Interesting.
So Jim, what kind of just kind of talk about some people who aren't familiar with your pens and what nibs you use.
We use pretty much whatever the customer wants. We use a lot of Yovo. We're moving more towards Bach. We got hit real hard with the whole Yovo housing splitting issue. Mark Backus and I brought that to Pablo's attention in Spain at the end of 2019. Yovo didn't acknowledge it until late 2020 in the US. They still haven't fixed it. I've still got housing splitting. But with the nib plating that we do, we pull more feeds out than your average person and replace them. So I've spent literally a couple $1,000s in buying replacement feeds that Yovo has never even considered reimbursing me for. And not to mention the reputational loss. Most people who are in the know realize that it's not necessarily my pen that caused the housing to split, but there's a lot of new users that were like, oh, this is a crap pen, the housing split. But nonetheless, we use Bach and Yovo. There are two preferred. I'm not a fan of the Schmidt nibs, even though they're roughly equivalent to Yovos. They're not consistent. Bach, Larry will tell you, 3-4 years ago, I was not a fan of the Bach steel nibs due to quality issues. Bach has really turned their act around. I guess losing Visconti and Montegrappo will do that to you. But they focused more on quality now. And I firmly believe a properly tuned Bach nib is a better writing nib than a Yovo. But it's easier at the moment for us to get Yovo.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, Kirk, just so you know, Kirk Spear is becoming a Bach distributor here in the US. And we partnered with him on a few of his initial buys. So we'll be showcasing more Bach stuff in the future, especially a lot of Bach 8 titaniums. We really love those nibs.
And then your color nibs, which I have one, is really cool. So is that's something you're doing in-house now?
We've been doing that in-house since 2019.
Okay.
And we're doing it for us and for Esterbrook. So Kenro, we have an agreement with Kenro. If you've seen the pink sands that just came out a little bit ago from them, we did the nib for that, and we're working on a Camden three Camden models that are coming out in 3 different colors.
Okay. I have the beacon, the purple beacon nib.
That was, in fact, that purple nib was one of the first ones we ever did back in 2017.
I remember that. Yeah, I bought one. Yeah. It's awesome.
How's it holding up? Is it okay?
Oh, how's it holding up?
No.
He asked, Liz.
Haven't done a big test.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear. I'm sorry,
up.
Francisco. No, it's actually holding up very well. Thank you for asking. Yeah, it's very good.
If it ever does develop a chip or anything like that, we've always offered one free replate. No questions asked. So if you drag it across the concrete and it scrapes the thing all off, we'll still replate it for you.
Okay. No, it's all good. No, I've had it for actually I've had it for a few years. It's holding up very well. Thank you. It's beautiful.
That's what we like to hear.
Yeah.
So before we did the whole Kenro deal, just, we've always said, don't use Private Reserve and don't use Noodler's inks. With the plating that we use, the higher on the acidic base scale it is, the more alkaline it is, the more likely it is to affect the plating. In fact, if we have to strip a nib that's been plated, we use a potassium benzenate solution that's like highly caustic, that it's almost liquid plumber, right? That strips it off. But before we did that at the North Carolina Pen Show this year, we took one of our turquoise nibs and we soaked it in Bay State blue for the 3 days the show went on. And at the end of the show, we took it off and we were rubbing on it, and it held up. So that's when they're like, okay, we're convinced it'll hold
You
up.
know, Jim, that's interesting because if you look at a list of, I was just talking about this the other day on the Zoom Pen Hangout. There was a list of acidity fountain pen inks, and by and large, the vast majority of them were acidic in nature. And I wonder if that's because, you know, of trying to avoid the problem with plating and stuff like plating issues. I don't, there may be more now, but there weren't many fountain pen inks that were above, let's say, 7.2 or 7.4 on the pH scale. Most of them were well below that,
Right.
that. So,
most of them are acidic, and the plating holds up very well. And in general, and even the metal platings hold up very well to any sort of acid solution. It's the higher bases that really tend to mess with it.
I heard somebody say that they're more acidic so that way they don't mold as easy because they were having
They have
mold
they got antifungal agents these days that they actually put in the inks to keep the mold or any other sort of flora down to a minimum.
Right.
But you wouldn't necessarily want to write with a fountain pen ink that was acidic enough to, on its own, keep mold from growing.
Right.
It wouldn't behave well.
I can tell you from the dip pen world, we use the old iron gall inks, and those formulations are extreme. I mean, acidic at the extreme, and they still have mold produced in them. But the difference is we're using dip pens, so we simply scrape the mold off and keep going. But it's a very, very, if you have stainless steel nib, it's not stainless, it has steel nibs and you're dipping it into iron gall, it'll corrode the heck out of that within a day. Not dissolve it, but really damage the surface of the pen. So that's why I've never been a fan of iron gall inks and fountain pens. I know some folks probably use them and love them, but there's no way I'd put one in my pen.
I put an I put an iron gall ink in my Ackerman pump pen, and the little rubber gasket that uses to push the ink out is almost all the way corroded. Yep.
Yeah, and not to belabor this point, but one of the things people have to remember about iron gall inks, in their best state of being, they are basically completely soluble inks. That there's no pigment in them. Once the pigment forms because of oxidation, that pigment should not be put into suspension again. So what the old penman used to do is decant off the pure, the clear ink, and then add a little bit of like lemon juice or something to bring up the acidity again. But that slurry on the bottom should never be stirred because it's an irregular metal pigment. And because in its natural state, iron gall ink has two different. It's got the tannic acid in there as well as the iron component. And when they form, it's insoluble and it's also irregular. If you pick that stuff up and rub it in your fingers, not that I recommend doing that. It's actually, it almost feels like sandpaper. It's gritty. Yep. And so, sorry, there's just an aside on iron gall inks.
Oh, that's okay. And that's one ink we have not tested our plating with, and I don't think we ever really will. I'd never recommend anybody with a normal filler fountain pen use it. It's really just a dip ink, in my opinion.
Well, you give good instructions when you sell the pen with that nib, like the purple color nib. So I've always been really careful with the.
Did you get the little card, or did you get the 8x11 sheet printed?
Oh, the little card.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So we just recently switched to that with the whole Estabrook thing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I just uploaded the Acidity of Inkslist. This is an older document that's now in PDF form on the site. It was taken from Marcus Lincom, whatever that is, and it talks about, and this is old, so I don't know if it's still current, but Omos Blue Black, for instance, has a pH of 1.7, which is pretty startling. Yeah. It's in the PDF.
That's very surprising, actually.
Yeah, I mean, again, keep in mind, Jim, this is an old list. I probably had this in my possession for over 20 years.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
okay.
but I guarantee you it hasn't changed much. Because these are organic dye-based inks, right? So there's got to be some level of proton exchange for acidity and all this other good stuff. But
I haven't opened it, but I wonder where Waterman Blue falls.
Is it on there?
I'm pulling it up now. Give me a second.
Waterman inks 1 point something. Let's see, 1.8, I think.
Yeah, well, it's got Omos Blue Black. It has the Waterman Blue at where the heck was it? Waterman Blue was at 3.0.
3.0, yeah.
And keep in mind, the acidity of the human stomach's down around 1, right?
Yeah, it is a little under. Yeah.
Not all, the other thing to be concerned about, or at least be, have in your mind, is not all acids are the same. If you throw something into an acidic solution, same concentration of citric acid, it's not the same as hydrofluoric acid. You stick your hand into that, it ain't coming back.
Or muriatic acid.
Surprisingly enough, Schaefer Jet Black is a 9.
Yeah, and that goes to what you were saying. Now the question is, can we find an updated source of this? I don't know. I'd have to look at that and see.
I saw it somewhere.
That would really be interesting, because I've asked. There's a couple new ink manufacturers out there. Who's the octopus people, Elise?
Andurilium.
Andurilium inks. We really like their inks. They're nice pigmented stuff, and they're working on. The lady who's repping them is their son's the chemist. He's working on getting us a pH list, but his very not surprisingly enough with the color of the ink. So you'll find reds are generally more or higher on the basic scale than most, and there's definitely something to do with color and the pigments and what ends up being the acidity. But
I
that's
did
a
find
wonderful list. Thanks for sharing.
I'm going to post a link to that. The website's still up. I don't know if he's updated it yet, and I've got to go through it and scan it, but I'll post the website now into the chat section as well. So, but he's got an extensive list of extensive website to do with inks, and I would be curious to know if he's updated that at all. And I haven't made any comparison between what I posted and what he's got on the website, but again, if you're using gold nibs or steel nibs, stuff is not relevant. But it was interesting is I didn't know I never heard that before, Jim, about the plating issues and acidic basic inks. I can tell you the pens I've had that have had rose gold plating on them. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just the level of plating or not, but they all tend to oxidize at some point and corrode. And I just think it might be not enough
copper. It's the copper in the mix.
Yeah.
It turns it rose. That is what's oxidizing.
Okay. All right.
So many people had the 90th anniversary Mont Blancs, and all of a sudden the rose gold nibs just started becoming regular colored nibs after the plating just came
darken. Yeah, they darken, they tarnish a little bit. Yeah, I've got one. I'm trying to look at what else he's got here. He also mentions a Noodler site that has an extensive write-up of photos about pH. Oh, that's no longer available, so it might be an older. Yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, I don't have to worry about it too much, but I think have you guys found who use steel nibs is much of a problem with corrosion in most of the inks you use, or no?
The only real inks, and as we've refined the plating process, at least for our colored nibs, we almost don't have any inks that we truly would tell you not to use, except maybe Iron Gall. Even the Noodlers line, I think we're past the initial weakness issues with the plating. That's not to say there aren't stuff out there we haven't tried yet. But both Francisco, Elise, and I, we all have very extensive ink collections, and we're always buying new stuff when we see it just to try it. In fact, Francisco's holding up a vial. We had a Pink Sands come back. They were using Lamy. What was it, Francisco?
Bright pink.
Lamy Bright Pink.
Vibrant pink?
Vibrant pink, yeah. What we found was, in fact, Liz can tell you, on our care card, we tell you to avoid shimmer inks. And the reason is most of the shimmer is by adding mica powder to the ink.
Yeah.
Mica powder is very abrasive. So when we bought a bottle of that Lamy ink, we looked in the bottom, it's full of shimmer. It's full of mica. And
that's not even the worst
nib,
one.
Yep, right at the tip of the nib on one side of the tine, the plating had wore off or scraped off, and it almost looked like they dipped it straight down to the bottle. The Lamy bottle's got that deep circle in there, and pulled it up against the mica powder. So we're still waiting on Kenro to get us the nib to investigate. But so far, the nib, we'll soak them for days at a time just to check and see will the plating hold or not. And generally they do, but you know, there's all kinds of things. I know people love the shimmer stuff, but it's really rough on a steel nib because it is abrasive.
The other thing
Well,
too, Jim, is that
just for the people out there who are watching this later, don't be afraid to use your shimmer inks. Just
I'm not
be
I'm not
careful.
saying don't use it. I'm just saying, yeah, be careful and clean your feeds often, because that mica powder depends on how the size of it.
It never goes away.
It never goes well. Some of it is sub 5 micron, some of it's 10, 20 micron. The bigger the flake, the harder it is to clean out. I'm sorry, Joe, you were asking.
unless you can disassemble that nib unit, I wouldn't use it. I know, Marilyn, no, not to push against you, but I'm a fanatic when it comes to the cleanness of my nibs. And
Oh, I am too. I
unless
take
you can
apart all my
disassemble
pens.
the
I don't
nib
care
and
how old
everything.
they are. Yep.
Yeah, and so not just the pens, but also the nib unit itself. And most people will not disassemble their nib from the feed, you know, and that's where that becomes an issue. Even an ultrasonic bath will not clear that stuff. So
true.
What were you showing there, Francisco?
The Nib Care Card.
Oh, gotcha.
We just kindly say, you know, we don't say don't use shimmer, but it's like, you know, strongly recommended not to on the plated ones, because as Jim said with that pink sand,
Well, and the little vial that he was showing has a nib soaking in that Lamy pink. So as he was putting it in there last night, it was like you could see the shimmer already on the inside of the vial. So we're waiting to see what's going to happen with it.
Yeah, that particular ink has got a lot of mica in it. I was surprised.
Oh, no. Wait till you see some of the other. I just
trust me, I've got shimmers in my collection. I don't use them. I dedicate pens to them
My
because they do look great.
My
Marilyn,
favorite
if
shimmer
you
is the
could,
powder.
and you find an extra 5 minutes, is there maybe a list you could send our way of inks you think would also affect our colored nibs? Because hey, if it's something else that's out there that we need to start telling people, you know, definitely stay away from this specific one, that would help us out.
I look like a lot of inks, Marilyn. I got a lot of inks too, but they're all Yamabudo.
I don't know what is going on with my.
So anybody got questions for the new pen makers that are
yeah.
under my control now?
Jim,
and I've already told them they can answer truthfully. So if you want to ask them what it's like working for a prick like me, you can.
Jim,
you're not going to get fired.
Jim, how many pens are you making a day now?
Personally or collectively?
Collectively.
Let's see. Every 3 or 4 days, Ray can turn out about 22. Rachel can turn out about 15. And with everything else I got going on, I might get 5 to 10 personally.
So how many pens do you take to the pen show?
Well, the last 4 pen shows, Francisco, we've taken 100 plus. And in fact, in Philly, I think we took almost 170 pens.
How many tables are you using now?
2. Although I think in Chicago this year we'll have 3.
And how many people go with you? 3?
So far it's been Francisco, Elise, and I doing most of the traveling. Although Elise didn't make it to Philly, we got hammered here at the Heinz house with COVID in January. So Rachel here came down with it. Jesse, my other bonus daughter, came down with it. Elise and Natalie came down with it, but Elise and I avoided it. I tested 2 times in 2 weeks right leading up to Philly just to make sure I was clear to go. How we avoided it, I don't know, but it was rough. So Elise stayed behind for that one.
Are they checking at the pen shows for people getting vaccinated or wearing masks or follow the rule? What?
It depends on the show. Philadelphia, as a state or as a city, you couldn't go into a restaurant without bringing your vaccination card. They wouldn't serve you. You could get food to go, but you couldn't sit. So yeah,
Or eat
we're all
outside. You
vaccinated.
could eat outside.
Or you can eat outside. But we all brought our cards, and they were checking at Philly. You couldn't get a ticket to walk in the door unless you showed your card.
In DC, when we were there, they really encouraged masks and had the sanitizer and everything. So it kind of depend on the show if you were masked or not masked, and kind of what everybody else was doing.
So Rachel, what's it like working for your uncle?
The worst.
We're horrible. We feed her and everything. Oh my gosh.
He dropped me upstairs. I now live 5 feet that way.
Well, hang on. In all honesty, you don't know Texas very well, Liz. She lives in Forney with her mom and stepdad. Forney is a good 45 to 60-minute drive.
Okay.
And she's here 4 to 5 days a week. So what she does is she'll come in on Sunday night, bring her clothes, she'll stay and go home on the weekends.
There you go.
Oh, that's great. See, I have nieces. I have 3 nieces that live with me because they're going to college out here. So they'll probably say the same thing, going, "Oh yeah, no, it's a problem with Auntie."
You feel Jim's pain.
horrible.
What was the hardest thing you had to learn?
Your attitude.
My attitude. Thank you. Ray, what was the hardest thing you had to learn in pen making so far?
I think Ray had to go.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are.
I'm still here. Yeah, in pen making or with you?
Both. Answer both. Be
Okay.
honest. Be honest.
I guess more or less to be more what do you call it?
Politically correct?
Yeah, that. I usually call things doohickey, that thing that goes into that other one. I don't know all the technical terms. Luckily, whatchamacallit. Luckily, I don't work with Jim every day, so that's a good plus for me. I work somewhere else, but I do hang out with him 2 days a week. But other than that, no, basically knowing all the different parts. Francisco every once in a while will ask me, "What is this called? What is that called? What is the size of this? What's the size of that?" And I'm usually like, "It's that thing."
I'm surprised neither one of you two said the single point quad start threads for the Avancios.
No, that wasn't hard. You made it easy because you already had everything
I think
down.
it was harder to work with you than having to learn to do this thing.
Yeah.
I can teach 2 complete noobs to single point quad start thread, but working with me is the end of the world. I got
It's
it.
the end of the world. Yeah, no, it's all
The
right.
truth comes out. The truth comes out, Jim.
Well, Larry will tell you what a difficult person I am. So
Oh yes,
Careful
yes,
of the
yes,
toes you
yes.
step on today. For
I'll
them to
get
be
you
connected.
offline and tell you how wonderful, sweet, kind, loving, caring, passionate man he is.
Hey,
Yeah,
Larry, how many pens have I given you over the years?
Hold your breath. I'm still waiting. Get out of here. Creep.
And if you want the real truth about both Larry and Jim together, just wait for my book to come out.
So I was going to ask a question. Oh yeah, Jim, how's Americana selling?
I wish it were selling more briskly. However, we have had 3 orders for Americanas in the last 2-3 weeks.
I'm surprised. That's a nice pen.
It's a gorgeous pen. And you know what's funny is we'll probably sell maybe 15 or so a year. And it's usually to someone in the business world, a lawyer, an executive or something like that. It's just such classic styling. And I think the deco clip really makes it. And oh, by the way, I've got somebody I think that's going to be making that clip for us.
Yeah.
We were talking to Magna Carta, but I've got somebody else that's going to be able to make it in a little lower price and a little higher quantity, and we're gonna share them with him. So the Americana will never go away.
Yeah, I was surprised that it didn't take off better than what it did. I thought that was going to fly off the table.
It's ebonite. It's really the issue. Now, we can always make the Americana like we did for Frank in a colorful resin.
Yeah.
We just haven't, because that's always been our ebonite go-to, right? So maybe this year, with Elise doing Starry Nights, and some of her recent pours have been quite outstanding. Maybe we'll do some more resin-based Americanas.
Yeah, give a choice, you know, between one or the other, and see what flies.
I mean, you like the Stars and Stripes from Frank, right?
Yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah, that was Elise too. That was her brainchild.
Yeah.
Since you're talking about flavors of pens, I'm looking for a rainbow pen, not one of those mixy things. I don't want a mixy thing. I have a mixy thing. I want like a layered Roy G. Biv, and it has to be Roy G. Biv, and not none of this other flavored thing. So
she'll say, if you'll finally buy one of my pens, Marilyn, I'll have her make the
I'm waiting for the right. I'm waiting for the right one. It's got to be.
You haven't spoken up, have you?
I speak it. I've been speaking for a while.
Ask and you shall receive.
Oh,
she'll start working on a layered one for you. Do you want it sparkly or flat color?
Sparkly. Always sparkly. Are you kidding me?
I didn't want to assume. I figured, but I didn't want to assume.
Now, do you want the rainbow to be lateral, or do you want to go, you know, upwards?
I don't care as long as it's Roy G. Biv.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be a square one, and we can either layer it or we can put in separators and then remove the separator and do that.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of different ways we can do it.
Wonder what happened to that.
I don't know. Okay. Frank, you're on, or Tony, you're on mute. Sorry.
No, Marilyn, you'll just have to tell them which model you want.
All right. I'll have to go through and look.
Did we just come up with Marilyn, darling?
I think we just came up with Marilyn, darling, as a resin.
Shut up. It's got to be Miss Marilyn.
You know the story behind the Avancio pen, don't you?
Or you can call it Your Majesty, because that's what my coworkers call me.
Well, we name stuff after people all the time. You know the story behind the Avancio pen, don't you?
Right, yeah.
So after the first time Larry and I did an interview back in 2018, a gentleman from, what's the V in Canada? I can never remember that city. Vancouver. By the name of Ryan Avancio, called me up and he's like, I need an old Delta-sized pen that posts deeply and securely. I want 3 with clips, 3 with no clip. And off we went, and that's how the Avancio came about. Named it after him. It was so successful.
That's awesome.
Jim's brother was here at the holidays, and he wanted to try his hand at resin stuff. So he found a picture, and between him and I poured it, and we're going to name that one the Ken pen. We had talked about the Cousin Eddie, but Kenny wasn't too happy with that one. So we thought maybe the Ken pen.
His middle name is Edward, and Christmas Vacation is our favorite Christmas movie. So we're going to name it the Cousin Eddie because he's a great guy, but he's a little off.
Well, you know, Jim, if you're going to name a pen after Miss Marilyn, what the hell happened to me? I was way before this dude ever showed up.
You had your hand at naming pens. I don't know how many times. You've never named him after himself.
No. Hang on.
He's never named him after himself.
Hang on. Larry is talking about his lariat.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we'll let Elise take a crack at it, but that resin is not an easy thing to pour the way you have it colored.
Right.
And of course, he's got like 6 rings across the body and the cap, which is something we don't normally do. But Larry, this is the year we will make the lariat this year in at least 2 colors. I still have all the stuff Jake sent me.
It doesn't have to
make
be,
it this year.
It doesn't have to be the exact way. Just
Yeah, that color pattern that was in those pins we sent you was just something I was able to pull up in CorelDRAW. It doesn't have to match that specifically. It was just some combination of those colors.
Fair enough.
And I don't want mine shiny with shimmery and shit in it. No.
Your lariat will come this year.
All right. I'll be at your door to pick it up.
I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm not shipping it to you. You're gonna have to haul your ass up here for it.
Dang! Dang!
Only if you bring Starbucks.
Said it.
Well, so much for that.
I just want to see
Hey,
Larry.
I'll go with Larry. We can pull up with some little hot cocos.
Hey,
Oh,
we can do
perfect.
that. Yeah, baby. We can do
Chai latte tea for Elise.
A chai latte.
All right.
Let me get my pen. Give me a second. No, I don't have a fancy pen. I need a dip in. I'm over here using zebra pens and stuff. Don't hate me.
You just have to
No,
wait.
no, hey, there's nothing wrong. Those zebra G nibs are pretty cool for what they are. There's nothing wrong with them.
No, he's not talking about the zebra G nibs. He's
Talking about a zebra
like the clicky pen.
Ballpoint.
Oh, I'd still use them. Don't worry.
That is exactly what I'm talking about.
Hey, those
It's
zebras,
okay.
they
Larry.
nice and fancy. Some of them.
Get him
I got
started
it.
on like a retro 51 roller at least, so
Yeah.
he can upgrade, before
Hey,
he
that
gets the
sounds cool.
fountain.
Hey, Jim, do you ever think you'd ever make something like this?
That's the next thing I was gonna ask. I forgot.
I've done a couple dip pens. I haven't done what do they call those? Oblique or
Oblique? Yeah.
offset. Yeah, I haven't done any of those yet. I know where I can get the mechanisms, but yeah, I could pull one off if we wanted one.
And as being one of the few Italians on here, what about a spaghetti resin?
What is spaghetti resin?
Well, Leonardo has that. Mayora has that. It's basically it's a linear, a couple shades. It looks like
so black, white, like Newton has that one.
Yeah, I think he does one of those.
Yeah,
I don't know.
We can have when Elise does the layered pour for Maryland, we'll do a couple other colors because I actually think two contrasting colors would look really good. As much as I hate the Heinz pen nebula, the blue and orange, I think that would be a nice complementary layered pen.
Yeah, that is.
The black and white would always be a great one. Gray and red, I think, would also be a good match. We'll work on some of those for you, Tony. Hey, Mike, while I'm here and you're here, do you have any maker questions that you want to ask so we can bore everybody else?
Yeah, I was looking through. I'm trying to accumulate questions here, and I'm trying to pick one that would be.
It's a secret, Mike. Secret.
Well, I'm not asking for secrets.
No, come on. I'm one of the only pen makers that actively teach. So I don't have a whole lot of secrets.
Well, and I do appreciate that because I have while I haven't taken any of your classes, I think I've seen echoes of your classes several times from many different people.
The whole series that RJB Woodturner did.
That's the one. Yeah, that's one of them.
He filmed that like a week after he took my class with my permission.
Right.
So that's
Right.
essentially my class.
Yeah, he said that in the video, and yes,
if you learn from him, you learn from me.
Yeah.
That was
Hey,
the green
yeah.
spaghetti
Yeah.
pen I posted up there. It was a spaghetti pen in green. That's the spaghetti resin.
Yep, that was gorgeous. Thank you for sharing that.
Don't
One
have
day,
that.
one day we went over to Jim's house. We were hanging out with him and looking at his pens, and he made these pens already had been made. And so after, I think we were either there or I went home and online somewhere. I forgot how it went, Jim, but Jim's pens are in another location somebody made and copied them. Remember that one, Jim?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Then I told Jim, here's your pens, man.
Yeah, but I taught the guy, and I taught him how to make the Elementar, which is, if you look at it, it's really just a plastic nib holder. It's a single diameter round pen, no real taper to it, no real shape to it. When I do the one-on-ones, it's what I teach because it's a good starting point for everybody. So yeah, everybody starts off with something like that. So our more complex pen, the Avancios being That's a favorite now. People are buying 15 millimeter tap and die sets rather than single point threading them to get the girth of the Avancio. It's quite popular. So I'm gonna have to make a bigger one now. We'll have to go up to maybe an 18 millimeter pen.
Well, I hope that Elementor kicks off this year. I mean, it's a great pen, beautiful pen. I love it. Nice pen.
Yeah, we're gonna do more. Part of the reason is, Larry, we haven't brought a lot of Americanas to shows. Because they don't get ordered a lot. When we sit down, I'll make 2 or 3 of them, as I mentioned before, and we'll bring those 2 or 3 to shows, and all of a sudden they'll disappear. But we're going to try and make quite a few more of those in a variety of colors just to have on hand. I think if we had them available rather than just special order, I think a lot of people would pick them up more often than not.
And so everybody will know that that we'll be watching the video later, that if you want to go live, that's an upgrade. He can do that. And how about titanium? Do you do titanium as well?
We also do titanium. Bach's the only one that offers titanium, although the 6s are really kind of, I don't know, I don't want to call them a wet noodle, but they flex a whole lot and they tend to railroad a lot. The 8s, being a thicker piece of titanium, the 8 titanium is one of my favorite nibs. I really enjoy writing with that. But we are going to have actually a number 6 gold nib. I'm not going to tell you who makes it yet, but we're going to have a number 6 14K gold nib available for only a $70 upgrade this year.
Shut the front door.
So we'll be able to offer plastic pens with our styling out the door under $300 with a gold nib.
So Jim, the question is, have you thought about doing the skeleton pen?
The who?
Skeleton?
You know, as much as I work with metal these days, Larry, it's not really my forte. You know, I'll make clips, but it's still not one of my favorite things to do.
Couldn't you make holes in it in a plastic pen like that?
Well, we can flute a plastic pen, but most skeleton pens, the skeleton part is usually some sort of silver or brass plated overlay. I don't trust my metalworking skills enough, and with business as brisk as it is these days, to sit down and take a few weeks to learn that would take away from a lot of other things that we have going on.
Do you have anything new you've been thinking of creating, something unique, something different than other pen makers are doing right now?
We're going to have integrated piston fillers this year. And we're working on a little larger pen. It's going to be like, think of a Namiki Emperor size pen.
Okay.
Without the Yurishi, because I don't know how to do that. But think something along those size lines. And we were actually on our planning session yesterday. We've got some interesting ideas for small collector editions coming up. We've got a really cool St. Patty's Day pen idea that just came to fruition. And we still have an ink that we have in stock that we haven't released yet, that we're going to release with a special micarta pen. It'd be the colors of the Mexican flag.
And then we've got 2 different collaborations going right now that should be hitting online pretty soon.
Yeah, please continue. No, continue. Go ahead.
So Pen Chalet out of Arizona, are they in Arizona? They've requested, I just poured like 42, I call them the Grand Canyons. They just got shipped out last week.
They got them on Saturday.
Yeah.
And those are just stunning. And then we've got a collaboration going with Patrick from Papier in New Orleans. And that one is a Mardi Gras inspired pen that I also poured, and that's going to have like a little fleur-de-lis, roll stop, and some other fun stuff going with it.
Oh, fun.
We are approaching our end. Does anybody have a final question for Jim?
I do. I have a final question for Jim. Jim, before we leave, let everybody know where you're going to be at this year.
Upcoming shows will be at Atlanta, Arkansas, Chicago,
Raleigh.
Triangle. Yeah, Raleigh, Triangle, Miami, DC, San Francisco, Dallas,
Detroit.
Detroit, Colorado. Detroit has it. I don't know if Dale's going to do Detroit this year. Colorado, if it goes off this year, and Ohio.
And St. Louis.
You forgot
And St. Louis. I forgot St. Louis.
Is there a website where we can see where you're gonna be?
You know what, Marilyn? I'll work on off of our website. I'll work on a pen show schedule page. It's not something we've done in the past, but now that we're doing more than 10 shows a year, yeah, we'll put it up there.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions before we leave?
Make an effort to come to California. No, I'm just kidding.
Forget that.
We'll be in San Fran.
Just for Sunday.
We'll be in San Fran. I know.
No, I mean,
if the guy that runs LA ever gives a show away and somebody who really cares about that show comes in and opens it up to more than a day,
Right.
I can't make any money in a day.
I remember when they had the Anaheim pen show, and that was crazy. Like there was line all the way around the block to get in there. I was like,
Now there is going to be, Maryland, there's going to be a makers thing in July, the first weekend in July in Burbank area. I'll be doing a live demo and teaching some one-on-one classes. If you want to come down and meet me, I can bring some pens with us. We can chat. I'll see about getting you a day pass if you want to come down.
Cool. I'd be interested.
And I'll be
It's
there
gonna
with
be
the
a lot of-
RNA resins.
Yep, it'll be a lot of kit pen makers. I'll be there trying to show them how to make the transition.
Cool.
All right. Anybody else? Well, that's going to close it down then. So, Jim, I'll probably send you an email later today or tomorrow. And thank you, Jim, for coming on today and sharing, and to all the staff. And I want to see the Grand Canyon.
I'll send you a picture of one separately, Larry.
Yeah.
I don't want to take away Ron's thunder when he announces it, but I'll send you a picture. They're going to be available with a brown and a red nib.
Right. I just want to see what it looks like. Yeah, I'm really curious. Yeah.
You're going to want one.
Well, all her pours have been really sweet. I like them. She does a good job. Yeah. Good job.
That she does.
And you got good doggies too. Good doggies. Can't forget them. The doggies, yeah. We went over there one Christmas and the doggies were there. So yeah, I'll never forget that day. Good doggies. Yep. Give good kisses. A lot of kisses. All right, Jim. Well, we're done, buddy. Take care. Stay healthy, my friend. Okay.
Thanks for having us on, Larry. It's always a pleasure. And
Every once in a while, Jim, you can text me and quit being a caveman.
yeah, I'll try. You know how much I love the limelight.
I'll tell your niece, she'll have to hit you upside the head or something with a rock.
Well, you know how much I love the limelight. My ego is just, like that.
I know. To get you motivated, please. Right, remember that? Yeah, we'll talk about
Oh, that's
that.
gorgeous, Marilyn.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that is really what you've come a long way with your penmanship. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I teach simple calligraphy class on my YouTube channel, Marilyn Darling Show, if you're interested.
I will subscribe this week. I will check that out.
All right, but we are out of time and we're past time. It costs 50 cents. All right, y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
thank you
Take
for
care.
having me.